Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Final Word on Hockey. Let's Talk Pucks in Association Spitball and Sports Podcast. Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku. I am so happy and honored today. I'm your host, Jim Biringer. John Restaino down below. My good buddy, Charlie, is back. Renegades to the Puck. Check him out. This is all incorporation of Full Press Hockey as well. Charlie, welcome back, buddy.
Thanks, Jim. And, it's great to be back on the show, and I'm always so happy to be here. And, I've actually got things to talk about. It started off the year like we were going to be in rebuild mode, but after 25 games, a team that's over 500 and making some drama headlines out there across the landscape. So got some good things to talk about coming out of the Music City.
Yeah, I mean, we talked earlier in the year about Nashville Predators, one of those teams to watch. John and I, when we did our divisional previews here on the show, we talked about how Nashville was a team for us to watch as well. And I'm liking what Andrew Burnett is doing down there. And, there's some games that they look great, some games they don't. But that's what you kind of have to expect with a first-year head coach, right?
100%. And you nailed it. It's inconsistency. And when they're on, they're really on. They're on good enough that they can go toe-to-toe with the New York Rangers, beat them at Madison Square Garden, lost to them on a late goal in the third period here in Nashville. But that's the easiest example right there. When they're on, they can go toe-to-toe with the best teams in the league. When they're not on, though, they struggled to win a game late in Chicago with the shootout last night. They lose to Minnesota by a big margin on home ice. So there can be some frustrating moments. But overall, it's been a really, really good first 25 games for Andrew Burnett as the head coach. And he's pulled some good strings and some interesting strings. It's working really well with the younger players, perhaps not so much with some of the veteran players. And I know we're going to get into it as we move along in the conversation. So,
yeah, I mean, Nashville to me is one of those teams that you have to watch in the Central Division. Again, like you said, you lose to Minnesota, then you play. Well, right now everybody seems to be losing to Minnesota because they make the coaching change and they're on that coaching change hot, and they're averaging like 5 goals a game and they're giving up only a goal. So, I mean, I think everybody's falling to Minnesota right now. But in terms of what you've seen through the first 25 games, what has stood out to you in terms of players, in terms of schemes, in terms of guys just taking the right steps?
Oh, I'll tell you right now, we started the season, we started training camp with 3 words: fast, loud, and fun. And so far, Andrew Burnett has instilled all of that into the offense. I didn't know how that was going to translate into this Nashville Predators team that's always been more of a blue-collar, hard-working team. You look at the head coaches they've had, you look at the players and the superstars they've had. They've always been kind of the same mold, same cut: defense first, goaltending first, offense comes last. But this Andrew Burnett squad is offense first. Goals per game is up to 3.16. That's only middle of the pack for the league itself, but that's great for the Nashville Predators, who were down around 2.6 for the majority of last year when John Hines was still the head coach. What are they learning? They're learning to push the pace. They're learning to move the puck. And guys like Philip Forsberg have taken to it immediately, off to easily one of the best starts of his entire career right now. If he remains consistent and healthy, would be the first Predator ever to eclipse 100 points in a season and could easily get to 40 goals again, with already being at 13 this season. Some of the younger defenders, Alex Carey, unfortunately out injured right now, but learning so much from being out there with McDonough, learning how to become a shot blocking machine and a real good stay-at-home defenseman. And some of the younger players like Tomasino, who saw some healthy scratch time, and Luke Evangelista some healthy scratch time, coming back from being in the press box, more motivated and hungry than they were before. So you're starting to see how Andrew Burnett likes to pull the strings. So far, no paint peeling, even after the bad losses. He's maintained keeping things nice and even keel and stride. You would expect that. Barry Trotz being the GM, that's kind of the mantra around here. Everything stays in stride, not too high, not too low. But through 25 games, Andrew Burnett's introduced a new style that's faster, it's more fun, it's higher scoring, and there are certainly some of the players on this Predators team that maybe haven't excelled in the past that are excelling beyond belief. And then you add O'Reilly and Nyquist to that as newcomers to the system, and both of them are also excelling to the delight of the home fans and to the surprise, I think, of a lot of analysts.
Go ahead, John.
No, my question is about Ryan O'Reilly. I only got to see him for a little bit at the end of the season with the Maple Leafs, and he looks like he loves it there. It looks like he's having a great time, and he's got 12 goals.
I can't believe it. It's like he found a fountain of youth somewhere. I just start thinking about these wild scenarios of like, what if Ryan O'Reilly was on this Nashville Predators team the last couple of seasons? And I also think that for 20 years, I've covered this team. And at times, I thought I was covering a true number one center, especially in the Ryan Johansson era here. But now that I see Ryan O'Reilly night in and night out, what he does in the faceoff dot, in front of the net, leading the team, I am seeing what a true number one big body center is all about. And he seems rejuvenated. The words he's using is, I'm having more fun than ever. He seems to love skating with Philip Forsberg. And let's face it, as a center who can move the puck and keep plays going, you love having a guy like Philip Forsberg who can finish. And on the other side, Nyquist, he's the quietest guy on the team so far, but he's also fourth on the team in scoring with 17 points. O'Reilly's fitting in like he's been the missing piece all this time. And I can only imagine how good this Predators team might have been, say, 2018, 2019, when they were winning divisions, presidents, trophies. Would have had a big body number one overall center like that. He fits better than I could have ever imagined. And I was one of the analysts that said, why in a rebuild O'Reilly? Now I get it. Because on the ice, he's leading by example. Off the ice, he's telling the youth when to eat, when to work out, how to prepare yourself for a game, how to act on the road. And I see the young players around this Nashville Predators organization absolutely gravitating to O'Reilly and McDonough. And I can't imagine two better veterans to help with your rebuild, especially with the amount of youth this Preds team has.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think Ryan O'Reilly's been a great signing for this team. I even, some people said, it's O'Reilly. Why would you do this in a rebuild? I said the same thing out in Anaheim with Alex Killorn and Radko Gudas. Anaheim's, in their little rebuild. They've come back to earth a little bit, but you want those veteran guys to help your young players out. And you mentioned Ryan McDonough. I mean, again, unfortunately, the salary cap won for Tampa, or else he's still there. But the Nashville Predators got a rock solid veteran defenseman on the back end to help those young guys come along. And you mentioned it there. You mentioned Gus Nyquist too. I said, and John heard me say it too, I thought this guy was a great, sneaky, good signing by the Nashville Predators in the offseason.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is, man. It's like silent but violent, man. He is out there getting the job done night in and night out. 3 goals, 14 assists. He's involved around the net and with the play all the time. Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist weren't put together until after about the first 10 games of the season. They tried a couple of other wingers up there in the spot where Nyquist is now. Once the three of them got together, it was as if they had skated together for 2-3 seasons. They just seem to have this natural consistency in chemistry, which is not something we see a whole lot when 2 free agents join a superstar on a top line on a team. To see that rebuild and work as well as it has, as quickly as it has, it's truly impressive stuff. And you got to give credit to Andrew Brunette and obviously to Barry Trotz, the GM, for thinking, wow, these 3 players would fit together in my top 6. And they've been absolutely right. Those 2 players have been great additions to this team. And the word sneaky good signing by Nyquist is absolutely the perfect way to describe it.
Absolutely 100%. Nyquist, O'Reilly, you look at Luke Shen on the back end, the goaltending is done well for Nashville. And that's where I want to go, because you see reports, and I've tried to talk to some people on the inside about this. You talk about UC Saros, Lankinen's there, and you see Lankinen start against the Rangers, and then you see Saros start the next day, and you're like, okay, well, why wasn't Saros playing against the Rangers? Wouldn't you want that one more? And why are you throwing that one away? And there's conflicting reports out there about Saros wanting to stay. Is he going to stay? Does the team really want him? What's your inkling about that?
Well, I start with this. Right now, Askarov is supposedly the heir apparent of the future. But at this moment in time, after watching him on a Calder Cup run last season all the way to the finals, when he had to be replaced midway through the AHL playoff run, he is not NHL ready. So for anyone throwing the theory out that this is clearing Saros to bring up Askarov, it is not the right time for that. It is at least 2 seasons away from happening. That's where we get to Kevin Lankinen. Lankinen could be easily a good stopgap option for a team that's in rebuild mode for the remainder of this season and one more season till Askarov was ready to go. But I don't think UC Saros is going to get moved. If he wasn't moved by David Poyle at the trade deadline last year or at the draft, which is where I truly expected things to happen, and I expected teams like Edmonton and LA to jump right into that. But now, seemingly, those teams are at least going with their own plans or different plans. I think UC Saros ends up staying here. I think he stays here long term. And by long term, I mean at least 2 more seasons until Askarov is ready to take over at the NHL level. You didn't invest a number 10 overall pick on a goaltender that had higher metrics, or at least as high of measured metrics as Carey Price did at one point, to not end up using him at the NHL level. So I think Saros stays. Askarov's not ready for 2 more years. Lankinen is certainly adequate when he gets his spot starts. And the back-to-back situation you brought up, everybody kind of thought that was weird. Lankinen had a really good game on home ice about a week before that, maybe 10 days before that. I think that was just Brunette trying to throw someone out there to get the stopgap, or, hey, maybe this was a capitulation moment that no head coach ever openly admits to, but he said, I want my ace against the Buffalo Sabres, and I want 2 out of 4 points this weekend. And if we lose to the Rangers, so be it. Because as everybody was saying after the Rangers left town, that was a good loss. I don't like terms like that. They're tough terms to deal with. But when you go toe-to-toe with the New York Rangers and you lose by 1, and the Rangers just the excellent of execution right there, Vinny Trocheck coming to town, Panarin coming to town, and just getting the job done. I mean, they just look so good here at Bridgestone Arena. But I think that was it. I think that was, we have to get the split this weekend. Buffalo's the easier option for UC Saros to get the win. And that was, without a doubt, Saros' best single game of the season in Buffalo. He had to look great because once the Preds got 2 goals on the board, it was like 20 years ago. They strapped in and hung on for the next 40 minutes, just hoping it would work out and their goaltender would stop it. And thankfully, Saros did put up his best performance of the regular season to this point.
I wanted to ask a question about the lineup, and I'm not sure. You guys, are they playing 11-7?
I think he was asking, are they playing 11-7 in regards to
They
forwards
have gone
and D?
11-7, I think. Yeah, supposedly the 11-7 alignment was to get Luke Schenn back from injury, get him about 7 to 8 minutes a night without having to tax the rest of the defensive core. But we were told after about 3 games of that experiment that would come to an end, especially with the Alex Carrier injury. But last night ended up 11-7 again because Cole Smith ended up coming down with an illness before the game, so had to be scratched last minute. So they just threw a 7th defenseman out there. 11-7, I hope it's not the permanent fix here. I don't like the 7 defenseman alignment with this Nashville Predators team. It's not something they've customarily done, but it did work, and it did give them a little bit of a boost for a couple of games there. And it allowed Schenn, who he's back physically, but he's not back to the standard that we all know he can play at yet. He's still only about 10, 12 minutes a night, but he's getting in about 4 or 5 hits. He got in a fight. He's looking more physical, looking more like himself, but certainly I think his legs are not under him yet, and I think it's going to take a little while. So being the 7th defenseman has benefited Schenn, but I don't know that it's necessarily helping the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of teams, even John and both and I agree, we don't like to see teams roll 11-7. The Maple Leafs have done it. Jersey's done it. It's not ideal. You want that 12-6. One guy you mentioned, the defense, who was healthy scratch, Tyson Barrie. It's come out that he, looks like he wants to be traded out of Nashville. Not happy with the situation. Not happy with the healthy scratch. I see Barry Trotz made some comments about he's not happy that it got out. You think that's going to come sooner rather than later? It's like a similar situation that we saw in Calgary with Nikita Zadorov.
I was really surprised to see Barry in the lineup last night. I think that happened just because Cole Smith ended up being a healthy scratch very late in the day, and they just wanted to go ahead and make sure they had enough players out there on the ice. But in the battle of Barry versus Barry Trotz, the rookie GM, is going to win out, and he was extremely candid and demonstrative in his radio interview here in Nashville yesterday. And we don't get a lot of off-ice drama here in Nashville. That's a organization, because it's only had one GM up until this year, has always managed to keep things very close to the vest. Very little leaks out of 501 Broadway at Bridgestone Arena. So to hear this story come out, I immediately raised my eyebrows, because I thought this sounds like a player or agent that's upset with the situation and a healthy scratch. And turns out that That's exactly what Barry Trotz indicated. And I do think the trade is going to happen. I think Barry Trotz is going to be willing to accept literally anything he can get back, especially now that it's out in public. And I know there are teams out there that are suffering injuries. The Leafs, the Devils, since we're in this conversation right here, probably could use a defenseman like Barry. Listen, he's not washed. He's just not getting the top minutes or the power play time or the role that he necessarily wants right here. I thought actually under John Hines, Tyson Barrie looked very good the last quarter of last season when he arrived after the Matthias Ekholm trade. But so far this season, other than the first maybe 2-3 games, he's just kind of looked a little lost out there, hasn't been performing to a very high level, and he's been a defensive liability, which earned him a healthy scratch. Now, several other players have come back from the healthy scratch, hungrier with the desire to bring the jam and go out there and bring the no half step and goodness to the rink. But Tyson Barrie apparently went to his agent and went a totally different route. I do anticipate a trade, and I think he'll be heading over somewhere to the Eastern Conference fairly soon for, you know what, a low draft pick. I think that's an easy thing to get done.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this. He got traded, like you said, for Ekholm. When that happened, how did you feel about that? How did that make it? Because I know how I felt. How did you feel about them making that deal and moving Ekholm out?
I was a huge Matthias Ekholm fan from the day he first came to the organization. I felt like as a second pair defenseman, Matthias Ekholm brings every tool that you want. He brings the good, rugged physical play. He brings some size. He can be easily a power play quarterback if you give him some time and space. He can lead the rush if you want to. It doesn't seem like it's his most favorite thing to do in the world, which is why he always paired up with other guys that like to carry the puck more. But I liked Matthias Ekholm. If it wasn't for the contract, I think he'd still be here. He got that massive contract when David Poile was in a stage after the President's Trophy era of giving out massive contracts across the board. And those players with those massive contracts are almost all gone now. Yossi and Forsberg and Saros being the only three left. But moved out Duchesne, moved out Johansson, and of course moved out Matthias Ekholm. But I liked Matthias Ekholm as a player. I just thought that he added a lot. 22 minutes a night. If you needed him to step up more than that, he could easily do so. And I don't track him game by game in Edmonton, but I know he's had his defensive lapses and some liabilities up there. It's made the fan base a little upset at times, but always liked Matthias Ekholm. And you know what? I'll tell you one thing about Matthias Ekholm, where hockey players rarely give you a good sound bite. You stand around that locker room sometimes for hours just waiting to hear one thing, and you hear, don't want to get too high, don't want to get too low. Matthias Ekholm was not afraid to look right in your face and give you a good, solid, honest answer. And that's something I always appreciate. And he turned the most amazing shade of red and purple when he would get angry. You always knew when Matthias Ekholm was about to lose his temper out there on the ice, because he started turning physically red and then purple. And then usually he would be in the box.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing solid up in Edmonton. I know, this year things have not gone ideal for the Edmonton Oilers, but some of it's not his fault. Some of it is his fault defensively. They just need to be better. And that's the one thing like Nashville's always been known for, is a good defense, good goaltending, and they're going to chip in goals. But I think one player that's really stood out, actually, besides Luke Evangelista, another guy that's really stood out to me this year has been Tommy Novak. Can you speak to his play?
I would love to speak to his play. What I like to say about Tommy Novak is simple. All he does is make plays. Tommy Novak, when he first came up, I noticed there was some intangibles, details to his game that I didn't see other young players coming up with. Then I referred to it as the curious case of Tommy Novak, as after about 30 games in the NHL, he seemed to just disappear. He went back to the AHL. They worked on his game. They worked on his body. They worked on his skating a little bit. And since Tommy Novak has come back from that time in the minors, he is an all-world consistent pivot that can basically get any job done. He can carry the puck through traffic. He can go to the net and tip pucks. He can set guys up all day long. I think Tommy Novak is truly an emerging star, not only for this Nashville Predators team, but for the league. Unfortunately, out injured. We don't have the time frame on his return right now, but even being out injured, he's still fifth on the team in scoring with 12 points, and he had a really, really strong start to the season. He's one of the players I enjoy watching the most. And just because you mentioned Luke Evangelista, I have to go ahead and say it. Last night against Chicago, now listen, I know we were watching one particular player for the Blackhawks all night long, and Connor Bedard did score one sweet shootout goal, almost won it in the OT. but it was Luke Evangelista, who's second in Calder scoring so far this season, who scored the goal in regulation. So Luke Evangelista outplayed Bedard in this one particular instance in Chicago. Evangelista seeking consistency. If he finds consistency with the big body frame that he has, the way he goes to the walls and the exuberance which he takes a hit, Luke Evangelista will not only be a star in the NHL, he will become a fan favorite. And with the looks he's got, fellas, we all know when they got the flow, they got the hair, they got the looks, and they like to take a hit, he's going to be a cult figure around this league. And his name is Luke Evangelista. I think he's a really good player. If he finds that consistency that all young players strive to find coming up from the AHL to the NHL level. Last year, he put up a lot of points. They just came in bunches, and there were big gaps in between. This year, a little bit better. Evangelista, 4 goals, picked up that one last night, 10 assists, 14 points. And like I said, second in Calder scoring. I don't think he's going to win the Calder scoring race by any means. I'm not even joking in that manner, but he could be a Calder finalist at the end of the season. That would be great recognition for the big 77 in gold.
And Nashville sits right now. You guys are only 2 points out of a playoff spot because the Pacific's just horrible when you get past LA. And then you guys are only 2 points out, right behind, and team Arizona and St. Louis. So there's no reason they can't, be jumped to get into the wild card. Do you see a point, or I know it's only 25 games, but do you see a time where they're adding? Do you think this team adds to the, at the deadline or things like that?
That's a fascinating question. I have not thought that far ahead yet, but I'm going to do it right here and give you my immediate reaction to that. I think Barry Trotz, like he has historically done, will add a role player or two, maybe another sneaky signing, sneaky trade that goes a little bit under the radar, but ends up performing with his roster better. At this point, I see the Preds remaining relatively neutral. I do see the Barry trade coming sooner rather than later. I think you're looking at another possible waiver move because I don't think anybody's going to offer anything for Liam Foudy. Unfortunately, I don't think Foudy is going to work out here. He didn't work out in Columbus. The kid has such good speed. He has great vision, good high hockey IQ, but he's just in a logjam in the bottom 6 of forwards here, and I just don't think he has much of a future. So for Barry Trotz, rookie GM so far has made 2 waiver claims and has made some signings that were kind of surprises to people. So I'm going to go ahead and take the side of the coin that say, I think he might surprise some people and maybe add something down the stretch if the Preds compete. And in the Central Division, you mentioned the Preds struggled. That Arizona Coyotes team, when they came to Bridgestone Arena, they are a tough team to play about. There's no such thing as a 50-50 puck when it comes to the Coyotes. Everything seemed to be 60-40, 70-30. The Coyotes were just jumping all over the Predators here. But the Preds did score wins over the Avalanche and over the St. Louis Blues recently, and they competed and beat the Winnipeg Jets with a big-time comeback there in that game. So that's 3 teams ahead of the Preds in the standings in the Central that they've beaten recently. You mentioned the woes from the Pacific. That could mean 5 teams from the Central. I see no reason why this Nashville Predators team can't finish in at least 5th place in the Central Division by the end of this season. They sit in 6th right now, 1 point back, but that's quite a logjam from 2nd place to 6th place. It's only 5 points separating after 25 games. That's a pretty tight packed division, and someone that's up there now is going to drop, and someone that's down at the bottom is going to rise, as it always happens sometime around February. So we'll continue to track, but there's no reason that this Nashville Predators team cannot finish at least in 5th place in their own division with a weak Pacific division and get themselves into the tournament. And as I always say, getting in is what the regular season is all about, because I've seen a President's Trophy team lose in the 2nd round on home ice in Game 7, and I've seen an 8-seed team that barely squeaked in lose in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final, the Pittsburgh Penguins. So getting in is the point of the season. If the Preds can find a way to squeak in after 82, who knows what an Andrew Brunette-led team could do with that level of momentum, that level of exuberance for a season where they had no expectations coming in.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, what were the expectations for this team coming in? I think probably
none.
Everybody was – there was none, right? Like everybody said,
none.
Okay, maybe the best thing would be miss the playoffs. Let's get a high draft pick. Let's rebuild. Let's do some things the right way here. But all of a sudden, you sit 1-2 points out of this thing. St. Louis is so up and down. Can we really trust the Coyotes? I think the top 3 is kind of set. I just don't know the order. I think it is going to be Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg in some type of order. I just don't see the Jets dropping that far because I think they're playing really well now. 4 and 5 is up for grabs, and we've said it. Pacific, outside of the top 3 teams there, unless Calgary makes a run, and the Oilers too. If the Oilers figure out a way to go on a hot streak, then it's 4 and 4. But there is no reason to think this team can't make a playoff.
Yeah, I'm not being unrealistic in any way to think that they could finish ahead of Chicago, St. Louis, and possibly either Minnesota or Arizona by the end of the season. I don't think I'm getting high on my own supply here since I'm stuck in the Nashville bubble. There were no expectations coming into this season. A first time GM, only the second time in history the Predators have gone into a season with a new general manager, a new head coach, first time he's ever not had the interim tag on his title, a whole host of new players since everyone that seemed to be a veteran other than Yossi Forsberg and Saros was moved out at the end of last season. New signings in free agency, a lot of youth. The expectations were at the absolute bottom. And let's face it, fellas, you guys watch from the outside, and you've known this since at least 2018. The Nashville Predators hung on to the core of the team a couple of seasons too long because they won back-to-back divisions, because they went to a Stanley Cup final, because they won a President's Trophy. They earned the right to try to make another run, or maybe 2 more runs at it, but 3 more runs, 4 more runs at it, 2 head coaches. They held on to the core of that team too long. So the fan base, the ones that have been here since the beginning, they wanted the whole thing blown up. There was no expectations for this year. They just wanted to see it all hit the reset button. The Predators did that, and from complete rebuild to being back in contention usually takes a couple of seasons. Well, the Predators, by signing O'Reilly and Nyquist and bringing McDonough in at the end of last season, perhaps they've shortened that window from 3 years to 1 to 2 years, and we're seeing the benefits already with a team 1 game over 500. They had a pretty tough road schedule to start the season, and they're 26 points and very close to a playoff spot. So if they can keep this up over 82, they might squeak into the tournament a year or 2 before, and who knows? Like I said, once you're in, let's just think. I'm looking off to the horizon. I'm seeing, what about what the Florida Panthers did last year as a young team out of nowhere that had no expectations? That's what the Nashville Predators were in 2017. That's what any team coming in hot at the end of a season as an underdog can be. And this Preds team is full of a lot of youth and some good, solid veterans that might put up some career years. Who knows? If you get in the dance, anything can happen. But I think the Preds can finish realistically 4th, 5th in the Central Division. Now that I've seen them through 25 games, I have the confidence to say that they are absolutely a fringe playoff team, and that Andrew Brunette so far has handled himself like a great pro as the new head coach. I think I'm the only guy covering the Predators that won't call him by his nickname. He insists. He hates being called coach, which is why I always ask him questions when I say, hey, coach, because it's not my job to be friends. It's my job to ask questions, and it's my job to be critical at times when necessary. But Andrew Brunette, he gets along well with the media. He relates well. He answers questions thoroughly, not as fully as John Hines, but John Hines toward the end ended up just kind of being word salad. He would give you 3-4 minute answers to every question, but it was starting to not make sense. Brunette is direct, but he'll tell you what he's thinking. He'll tell you why he's doing 11-7 in the lineup. He'll tell you who needs to get better performances, why he's healthy scratching guys. And so far, I've really enjoyed covering him as somebody who's got to be around it almost 8 months out of the year. I've enjoyed his performance so far as the head coach. And Dan Highnote, fellas, that's a head coach in waiting for the future. He does a lot of media here, and his energy, his exuberance, his excitement for his club, it's off the chart. So if you start hearing the name Dan Highnote rumored in the future for possible head coaching jobs, don't be surprised, because that guy really does a hell of a lot of work here. And he was actually held over, which is pretty rare when head coaches change. He was held over from the John Hines era into this current Andrew Brunette era. So I think the assistant coaches are also doing a real good job with this young Preds team.
I got something, and this is kind of just an observation, but I'm way up here east. It feels like your city in Nashville, it's a destination now. Everything's happening there when you walk. I mean, it's always excitement. There's always something happening. It's almost like little Las Vegas. I don't know. There's always something. You got the tax situation is beautiful down there. Guys go to Toronto, they get killed. They go to New York, wherever. Do you ever feel that way, that you're just about ready to be that place where, why not? Why wouldn't I go? Ryan O'Reilly couldn't wait to get down there.
It happened when Paul Kariya signed here. Before that, Scott Walker had left a bad taste when he left the early years of the Nashville Predators team and went to Carolina, and talked about how Nashville wasn't a great city and used the word contraction at one point, which for Nashville Predators fans who adored Scott Walker and thought he was a cult hero here in this town, hated hearing that. When Paul Kariya signed with this Nashville Predators team, it opened up the eyes to free agents around the world. And ever since that time, the next generation of that was when the PK Subban trade happened. And when PK Subban came here to Nashville, it changed what everybody thought about playing in this town. It's a world-class hospitality and entertainment city with no state income tax. I love that you mentioned that, because I personally love that very much. I've loved living here for 20 plus years because I don't have to pay state income tax, and I don't take a beating when it comes to that. And the players do look at that kind of stuff when they're looking to sign. But after Paul Kariya, it became commonplace for big name free agents to, if they didn't sign, they would at least come through. They would check things out. They would have the meetings, all the things that they were doing with the New York Rangers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Chicago Blackhawks, they were now doing with the Nashville Predators. And it's truly a world-class hospitality and entertainment city. I know, Jimmy, you've been down here a number of times. When you walk out of the front doors of Bridgestone Arena, all right, let me set the scenario up. Predators just won the game 3-2. Crowds roaring, hands are going up. They open the front doors. Boom, you walk right out. You're on Broadway. You're right on the corner of Broadway, Music City, USA. There's 150 bars with neon lights and guitars blaring, every one of them wide open until 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody goes out. They have a good time. Sometimes you run into players over at Broadway Brew House. Sometimes you run into fans from opposing teams who have had a little too much, but it is a party town, and they do love their pucks here. I know Jim knows it. He's been plenty of times, and I'll take anybody out on a hockey night in Nashville and show them just how fun and exciting of a city it is. Having the rink right smack dab in the middle of the party and entertainment district was one of the smartest business decisions this city has made in its entire whatever 200 plus year history. It is a brilliant layout, right into the party district, right into the honky tonks, and then everybody has a blast. Every visiting media who I talk to, they say the only thing they don't like about coming here is that they have to go to practice and cover the game itself. They want to just go out and party and hang out at the hotels and hang out on Broadway. Sometimes hockey gets in the way of the fun here, but it's a great city, and it continues to grow. It's a little too crowded. We have a couple of problems with transit, getting around. It's tough to move around downtown sometimes, but it's a beautiful place, and it's a great place to come party, and they love their hockey. We now have the NHL here, of course. You guys know that's what we're talking about. We have junior hockey here in the Nashville Spartans. We have college hockey, high school hockey. We have a thriving rec and youth hockey programs. We have at least 6 different two-sheet rinks all around Nashville, doing exactly what they did in Dallas all those years ago. As a matter of fact, Sean Henry was one of the people who helped build all of that, came here to Nashville, and has now been building ice rinks 30, 45 minutes outside of the city, all around in a big circular pattern. All it's doing is growing the game. It's truly a hockey hotbed that I think a lot of people don't know about. Some people are going to hear me say it on this podcast and question that, or they're going to say, this guy is nuts. And yes, I am certified, but come to Nashville, come to some hockey games with me, and I will show you an incredible hockey time. And fellas, the most important thing, it's still at a point where it's accessible. You can still get into the games. You can still go to the practices, and you don't have to fight through the crowd, and you don't have to break the bank to get a ticket like you have to in some markets. It's not as affordable as it once was, but you can absolutely still have a good night out. That's why I talk to a lot of Chicago fans. Fellas, this is what they do. They jump on the Southwest. They come down here. They get a hotel room for 2 nights. They drink themselves stupid. They get a hockey ticket, and they end up spending the same amount of money to come to Nashville for the weekend that they would to go to one home game with their family. So that I hear that from a lot of visiting fans, that their city, their rink, their team has become so expensive that it's more fun to come here to Nashville, party for a couple of nights, and catch a hockey game with your favorite team as well. That's why, fellas, you hear so many visiting fans when you listen to the broadcast. It's not that there aren't a number of Predators fans, believe me, but this town is so popular for tourism that people look their favorite team up the second the schedule comes out. When the Leafs come to town, believe me, this place fills fills up with the blue. It absolutely fills up. So it's a great town. And anybody who's never been here for hockey who questions what I just said, come on, check it out. I'll take you to a juniors game. I'll take you to a college game. And I'll take you over to Smashville to watch the Predators play.
Hey, I've been there firsthand, seen it. It's the fact, man. NHL draft down there, it was awesome. The place was rocking. You get out. We were outdone. We were out late every night. It was great. I mean, we were tired, but you know what? It didn't matter. It was a fun time. The games down there are great. The atmosphere is great. The fans get it. The chants are awesome. The chants during the Stanley Cup final were awesome. And I think that was the moment that people really realized that Nashville is a hockey city. I knew it beforehand, but that was the moment nationally. I think everybody realized, hey, wait a minute. They got something going on down there. Predators a good team. They're in a Stanley Cup final. You get the Titans in there. And since day one, since they've come into the league, they really embraced the country music scene. Everybody's there. You got Vince Gill. He's got tickets. He was playing there. You got different people singing the national anthem. The fact that you have that, just to incorporate what the city is, and right downtown is the arena. You got SiriusXM Studios in there as well. They do things the right way in Nashville. And like you said, the junior markets, the rinks, the Ford Centers, not to mention the roller hockey that goes on down there.
Yes.
This is a great hockey market. I talked to a bunch of people when I was down there during the draft. They were talking about all these new rinks opening. I was like, oh, you guys got the roller hockey tournament, the Wish Cups down here. They're like, oh, how you know about it? I was like, well, I got guys that play in it. I know, place is great. And Nashville's a great hockey market. Like I said, Carolina's a great hockey market as well. That little area, it may be unknown to some people, but when you know about it, man, it's like any other hockey market. It rivals some of these Northeast markets. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I love it because whether it was unconventional or not, when they got the NHL here, it's grown into something unique. It's its own party thing. And now we've seen that happen in other places. We've seen what Vegas has done since coming into the league, where they took the feel of their town and incorporated every bit of it, no matter how insane that can be at times. They incorporated every bit of Vegas inside the game as part of their broadcast, part of their in-arena presentation. Nashville does the same. And there are other rinks around the place. It's about having a good time and having fun. At the end of the day, hockey is a sport we all fell in love with as kids, and we love to go watch the guys play, and we love to see them play the best skill level in the world. And that's why the NHL is so fantastic. But you should also have a good time, and you should have fun. And if you're going to go out and spend a bunch of money and hang out with your friends and have a couple of talls in the stands, it should be a good time. So why not have a rock concert in between periods? And why not have balloons dropping things out of the ceiling? And why not? It's all a good time as long as it doesn't interfere with the game. I'm about the game itself. I'm about the players. I'm about the skill. I'm about the goals. I'm about the saves. But the peripheral stuff, I smile, I laugh, and I enjoy seeing how much fun other people are having at the rink. At the end of the day, it's an entertainment industry. It's a business, and it's all wrapped around professional sports. So the Nashville Predators, they're doing it right, and I applaud and appreciate what they've done. And they've given so many people opportunities to get on their stages or go out on the rink and swing a towel or ring their silly air raid horn or all these things. They incorporate so many of local celebrities, musicians, their own fans into the presentation of the game that it just makes people feel more connected. And that's what sells tickets. That's what sells jerseys. That's what sells plush mascot toys at Christmas time. And the Preds, they've done it well under the leadership of President and CEO Sean Henry. That's right, the President. They've had incredible leadership in the front office since then on the business side of things. And they really just nail it here in the Middle Tennessee area.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I got to get back down there. The last time I was there was 1991. So I mean, it was a totally different world. I remember 91 down there. It wasn't. I can't even imagine. It's got to be great. I'm making a move, so Jim will have to go.
Hey, we're going, man. That's it. We're going. That's it. We got to go down for a game. I know I had a couple boys down that went to the Leafs and Preds game early in the season. They had a blast. They loved it there. I said, I told you, you guys are going to love it, man. You go out of the game, you go hit the bars after. You're going to have some fun. The team is good. That was a great game anyway. Leafs and Preds put on a great game on a Saturday night, hockey night. Look, they rival. I'll say it again. I've been to games in Toronto on a Saturday night. I've been games to Montreal on a Saturday night. Seen Preds games. Saturday night Montreal, when that team wins, it's great. The place is electric. Doesn't matter what happens in Nashville. Everybody wants to have a good time anyway. But the fact that the team's winning, the fact that they're in the retool, rebuild kind of phase going on right now, they're icing a great product, and they're competing in a central division. Let's face it here. Outside of Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, and nobody really thought Winnipeg be there because there was some uncertainty. Scheifele's playing well, Hellebuck's there. Winnipeg and Nashville got that little rivalry from the playoffs. You know, you always must watch games. Are you telling me they're better than St. Louis and Arizona? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I know they can compete for that spot. And you mentioned that Jets Preds rivalry just for a second. The hardest game I've ever had to cover. It's on my list of 3 for hardest Predators games I've ever had to cover because of the result, because of the reaction, because of the fallout afterwards, was Game 7, Winnipeg Jets, Nashville Predators at Bridgestone Arena. Pekka Rinne in net. The Preds had won the President's Trophy, had done everything they had to do, and ran into that buzzsaw of Winnipeg. And Pekka Rinne gave up 5 goals almost instantly in that game. And there was a photo taken of Shea Weber standing on his head in the net, just completely out of the play as the puck is going in. That happened to be the end of Shea Weber here in Nashville. That was his last game as a Predator. The President's Trophy Predators fell on home ice to Connor Hellebuck in a Game 7, and it was a devastating 5-0 loss for that Nashville Predators team. Truly set the course for the fan base malaise for the next 3 to 4 years after that moment and after the Shea Weber incident. So it was definitely a tough time. Winnipeg and Nashville always get after each other strong. Penalty boxes usually fill up regardless of who's on the rosters. Those two teams have long memories of each other for sure.
Yeah, great series, great rivalry. I love that series. It was one of my favorites of that playoff run. It was awesome to see, so many good players. Winnipeg was different at that time. Nashville was way different at that time. Again, everybody thought maybe they'll get back to a Stanley Cup final after they ran into the Penguins. Again, revisionist history, you could look at things a certain way, like PK Subban, offside, the first goal, all that, whatever. It's in the past. But I do believe Barry Trotz is going to do things the right way here. I think you get that goaltending situated. You figure out, is Saros going to get extended? What's the future looking like there? You bring in a couple of pieces here and there. We talked about this on the top of this. We said character guys, the right guys for the room. And it starts with Ryan O'Reilly, and you're going to add more guys like that because I think that was a big reason why guys like Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson aren't here anymore.
I think you're completely right about that. And I've made the joke a couple of times that the new GM wanted players that were going to take the young players and teach them how to work out, when to eat, how to act when you're on the road, how to travel, how to pack, how to do all of these things, as opposed to maybe a veteran center that was going to teach the guys how to chip and putt over a glass of bourbon in the backyard at 2:30 in the morning. Now, that was a very funny video piece the Nashville Predators put together with some of the young defensemen going over to Ryan Johansson's house. He had a giant mansion, lived there all by himself, and the guys like to go and chip and putt in the backyard in the middle of the night. That's all well and good and fun, but when the Nashville Predators went into rebuild mode, I don't think that's the attitude that they wanted putting out there for the young players coming up. Bring in Ryan O'Reilly, bring in Nyquist, bring in McDonough, and you see the culture change and direction and how quickly the young players have gravitated towards them. Now, will it all work out in the end? It's working out through 25 games. If they make the playoffs this year, this team is absolutely a massive success with a first-year head coach, a brand new first-year general manager, and a host of new players. So if they make the playoffs, this season is a massive success no matter what happens after that moment, even if they end up getting swept by the Colorado Avalanche again, which nobody here in Nashville ever wants to see happen again. And that was another tough one. But this Nashville Predators team through 25 games is it's better than rebuild. It's maybe retool, and they're semi-competitive, and I'm happy with that. That makes it a lot easier to go to the rink every night. That makes it a lot easier to sit here and talk about the topic. And truly, it's a fascinating team to watch because I didn't expect O'Reilly to have such a big impact on this team and also back it up statistically. So that has just been truly fun. And Philip Forsberg, I can watch that guy skate, shoot, do whatever he does. He's one of the most high-skilled individual players this league has. He's a secret, a gem. I know he's a 40-goal scorer in the past, and people know that. But the things he does, play in, play out around the net, fellas, he tried to catch the puck behind the net a couple games ago, throw it over the top of the net, reach over the top of the crossbar with his stick, and bat the puck into the net. He just missed completeness. Now, I'm thinking that's a hand pass. That's a delay of game. There's something wrong with this play. It was all deemed legal. And in the post game, when they asked him about it, he said, not only am I going to try it again, I'm going to score on this one. So remember that. Glove the puck behind the net, throw it over the crossbar, reach over the crossbar, and tip it in with your own stick. That's it. Philip Forsberg is looking to get a Forsbergian. He's looking to get his Svechnikov moment, and he's had the lacrosse goal before. He's had the between the legs goal. He's had just about every kind of goal you can possibly score. That's when he scored on a one-timer slap shot from out high this season, people were blown away because they said, wait, he didn't do a spinorama, go through the legs, / pick the puck up and tuck it inside the post. No, he just blasted one at 90-something miles an hour. And Philip Forsberg is truly a unique, skilled individual, and he is single-handedly the best offensive player the Nashville Predators have ever had in their franchise's history. There's no question about that, not even close.
You took the word kind of out of my mouth, and the question I was going to ask, there's no other team in the league sitting like you guys are, in my mind, because anything works, no matter what happens here. They keep, you keep winning games, great. Maybe if things level up, whatever. I'm looking at the standings. There's no other team that's in this spot where I feel like really there's nothing bad. I shouldn't say that. There's really not much that could go wrong. Like everything is just, I would think if you're a Preds fan, you got to be just, it's a great year. There's nothing to go wrong. There's really nothing. It's all gravy, I guess.
It's all green grass and high tides from here because they wanted the rebuild. They got the rebuild. They were willing to accept what comes with the rebuild. And listen, when McDonough went out injured for a handful of games there, the Preds slipped defensively quite badly, and their goaltending wasn't really living up to it for a while. 5-game losing streak. But still, there was a lot of positivity. There was frustration with a player or a game here or there. But for the most part, it was, okay, so you lost to Edmonton and Calgary back-to-back. That's not the worst thing that's going to happen, and you were competitive in those games. And so the Nashville Predators come out of that 5-game losing streak. They maintain their composure. They get back into it, and now they're out there on the rink with a 5-game they had a 6-game winning streak, and they're being highly competitive in just about every single game that they've been in since then. So they handle themselves well. The fan base is prepared for it. The rink is going to be full no matter what because tourists, out-of-towners, visiting fans, they're going to buy up the tickets just as easily or quickly as the home fans are. The home fans are also scooping them up pretty quickly here, especially around the Christmas time. So I think you're right about that. The Preds have set themselves up for this year to be in the perfect rebuild mode. It is win-win. They make the playoffs. People are going to go crazy for this underdog story in 1-year rebuild, and the Barry Trotz story, especially in this town. People will go nuts for it. And if they bottom out, all people will start doing is looking at the draft board, and they'll start dreaming and thinking about the possibilities of the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, like John said, they're in a perfect spot in the standings. I know I always say I classify the murky middle, but even if they miss and they bottom out, okay, that's not a bad thing. They make the playoffs, okay, that's a good thing too. That means the team's progressing the right way and they're taking the necessary steps under Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett. And I think this is a good place, to wrap up here is because Barry Trotz was talking about some things early in the season he wished he could do on the island. We're kind of seeing what Barry Trotz is as a GM, but what type of coach he could have been if they weren't just playing defense all the time. He likes playing offense, but the Preds are still sticking to that defense model as well.
You're absolutely right about that. They believe in goaltending, defense, and then the offense. So that's where the GM comes from. Now you bring in a head coach that believes in run and gun, push the pace, and the two of them are striking a nice balance between the players they're bringing in and the style they're deploying them in out there on the rink. I think there's good things to come for the relationship between Andrew Burnett and Barry Trotz. And let's remember, they go all the way back to being head coach and player, as Andrew Burnett was on the first ever Predators team, and Barry Trotz was the first ever Predators Bears head coach. So they have a long relationship that I think is only going to continue growing and continue improving. And I think that Barry Trotz is going to give Andrew Brunette exactly the types of players that he needs, and Brunette's going to deploy them. It might take a little while to figure out what configuration, but I think he'll find the right way to deploy them. And this team is going to be fun. Even when they lose games, they're scoring goals, and there's exciting things happen, and there's good young players to keep an eye on. They might not be the most consistent team in the league at this point, but they are an interesting watch night in and night out. That is for sure.
Yeah, it is. I mean, great team.
Agreed.
Always a fun team to watch. John, you got anything else for Charlie?
No, I just I'm almost jealous because being the fan of the teams that we are, you don't get that opportunity ever to feel that way. Like either way, we're good. Like this is a good year. 1 year, we get 1 year of it though. I mean, Nashville's going to get 1 year though too, because then next year there'll be more anticipation and stuff. But yeah, jealous of you guys, and I enjoy. I love Ryan O'Reilly. I'm happy he's happy there. It's a perfect fit. Nashville, country music, the whole deal. It couldn't be better for him.
As a grizzled old center myself, I sure am happy to have more grizzled old centers that bring the jam here in town like Ryan O'Reilly. He's been tremendous. And fellas, come on down. We'll have some fun. We'll go out to some games. It doesn't matter what team is playing. We'll have a good time. And I'll show you guys all around Nashville. I'll show you. It's been updated quite a bit since the last time you visited. So I'll be happy to give you the tour. I'll give you the personal Renegades of Puck secret tour all around the town. We'll get Pete Weber and we'll get all the guys that work on the team. We'll get everybody to come on out and we'll have a good time. Fellas, this is I love these conversations, and I can't thank you enough for allowing me on and having a few minutes to ramble on about the team that I cover and get outside of my bubble a little bit. So thank you, fellas, and thank you to everybody at Full Press. And whenever you guys need any help, support, anything out of Nashville, you always got the Renegades of Puck in support, and we're always happy to help.
Absolutely, Charlie Saunier. Hey, Charlie, before we get out of here, wrap this thing up, just let everybody know where they can find you.
Would love to. Check us out. Find us everywhere. Renegades of Puck. Very easy to do. We're on YouTube. We're on literally every streaming platform that exists, and we are on pretty much every social media platform. So again, if you just put Renegades of Puck in any search bar anywhere, it's going to bring you straight to the bunker right here, and then you are going to be in the trenches as a part of hockey trench warfare, and you'll be joining the no half-stepping movement known as the Renegades of Puck. Come on. We got room for all of you. You got the fire, you got the fury, you got the passion, you love the glorious game of hockey. You're a Renegade of Puck. Jump on in the trenches with us.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been the Final Word on Hockey Association. Let's Talk Pucks here on Spitballin' Sports, Northeast Streaming Sports on the Roku channel. I've been your host, Jim Biringer, John Restaino, my co-host, Charlie Saunier, Renegades of the Puck. Guys, take care. Enjoy the rest of the regular season. We'll talk to you again real soon. Take care, everybody.